Good evening. My name is Waqar Salim. I am the director of the computer science program here at Habib University, and I'll be your host this evening. I'm very happy to see all of you. Welcome to Habib University. Thank you for coming. I'm sure you're as excited about today's talk as I am. I know one group of people who's extremely excited. That's the group whose class got canceled today. I see some of them are here, so that's good. Habib University believes in promoting a culture of academic discourse and frequently organizes events which provide the opportunity to our society to engage with thought leaders from various areas. Today's talk is no different. It is part of Habib University's flagship Yohsin lecture series. We have been holding this lecture series for quite some time. Previous speakers have included Dr. Wali Nasser, who is the Dean of the School of Advanced International Studies at Johns Hopkins University. He talked about the growing role of sectarianism in Muslim politics. Deborah Fitzgerald from MIT was here. She's a professor at the School of Humanities, Arts, and Social Sciences. She talked about the MIT story, enhancing the impact and effectiveness of university education. To tell you more about the Yohsin lecture series and Habib University's underlying vision, I'd like to call our president, Mr. Wasif Rizvi, on stage. Please give him a big hand.
Good evening. Assalamu alaikum. This is just fresh out of a printer. I wrote it, I haven't read it. So welcome to the fourth Habib University Yohsin lecture. Distinguished members of Board of Governors, Habib University faculty, students, and of course the audience. Thank you for being here. I would like you to welcome our wonderful fourth Yohsin speaker, Dr. Maria Clave, for making the journey all the way from Los Angeles. Dr. Clave is our second women speaker in the 4 lectures, so the gender balance there is 50-50 already. Habib University overall has 54% female students, which is the good news which brings the throngs of the 46% male students here. The 2 lectures hosted by the School of Science and Engineering, both have been delivered by, or is going to be delivered by women. So that in itself is quite a distinction. So the lecture is titled Yohsin. As you know, even in Romanized, it's written right here, but the ones who can read Arabic can read the whole statement, Qimatu kulli imri ma yohsinuhu, which is, of course, the mission statement of Habib University. Now, Yohsin is roughly defined as excellent passion, respect, beauty, and service. In Arabic, it's Husn, Ahsan, Ahsan, and Hasan. But I'm going to focus on a particular aspect, which is beauty. In a really fun and insightful video of Maria on YouTube, she says a wonderful line that ideas are beautiful, right? Which can then lead to beautiful outcomes if we continue to respect the core beauty of the ideas. Sometimes these beautiful ideas come into being in face of horrific ugliness. Harvey College is one such institution where seeing the horrors of weaponized nuclear energy as atom bombs gave birth to a beautiful idea of reorienting education of science and technology and rooting it in humanities. Their founders thought that there is something that has gone wrong with the education of science and technology that gave rise to something as horrific as a nuclear bomb. 50-some years later in Karachi, Pakistan, members of the Habib family were contemplating a similar beautiful idea. That too, in face of unprecedented challenges of violence and socioeconomic decline in the country. Their idea was to create Pakistan's first liberal arts institution. in the time when even the most optimistic predictions about Pakistan were not very encouraging, in fact, were frightening. But the founders, instead of leaving or diluting their presence in Pakistan, doubled down and deepened their commitment to this city and to this country. And here we are in this wonderful Habib University. 2 years ago, I visited Harvey College and shared this story, and there was immediate resonance. And we acted as a reminder for one of Harvey Mudd's core mission, which is to create a global impact. Under Maria's leadership, this impact has taken unprecedented levels. When Waqar will formally introduce Maria, you will hear the scope and diversity of this impact, which Maria brings not only to the college, but she is also leading issues of global and universal significance. We have now camped at Harvey College many times in the last few years, myself and many members of the faculty and our team. And every time we have been welcomed there as a second home. Maria Klave's presence here this evening is a testament of this deep commitment that she has to support any idea that is beautiful. Regardless of two 20-hour journeys, cramped in less than 72 hours, Maria is here. Thank you for inspiring us, and thank you for all the support and all the things that you have done already. Thank you.
Thank you, Asif. Before I formally call Dr. Clave on stage, I'd like to provide a brief introduction of some of her accomplishments. It's a long list. I'll keep it as short as I can. She received her bachelor's and PhD in mathematics from the University of Alberta in 1977. That year is special to me because that's when I was born. You can do the math, figure out how old I am. She then spent 8 years at IBM Research in California and 2 years at the University of Toronto. From 1988 to 2002, she served in various roles at University of British Columbia. She moved on to Princeton University as professor of computer science and later on as dean of engineering. Since 2006, she has been at Harvey Mudd College as their 5th president. And she's brought about quite a few changes under her presidency, as President Wasif mentioned. She champions the participation of women in science and engineering, and in one of the sessions we earlier had with the women in science and engineering here at Habib University, we mentioned how under her presidency, Harvey Mudd's female enrollment has risen from 30% to about 50%. Currently, she serves as a board member of the Alliance for Southern California Innovation and for the nonprofit Math for America. She chairs the board of the nonprofit edreports.org. She is a fellow of the American Academy of Arts and Science and a trustee for the Mathematical Sciences Research Institute in Berkeley. She has previously served on the board of Microsoft. In 2014, she was awarded the Women of Vision Abbey Award for Leadership by the Anita Borg Institute and was ranked number 17 on Fortune's list of the world's 50 greatest leaders. We at Habib University are humbled by her presence here today, and it is my pleasure to now formally invite Maria to please come on stage and share your experiences and thoughts on a liberal education.
So first of all, I just want to say what a joy it is to be here in Karachi. This is the second time I visited Pakistan. In the fall of 1971, I traveled by train from Kabul to Lahore and then across the border to India by bullock cart because the train service was stopped. And in fact, the border between Pakistan and India closed 3 days after I made the transition. And I would say it's a particular joy to be here in the year that the first group of students will graduate from Habib University. I've spent all day today and yesterday having a chance to meet with the faculty, the students, the board members, and members of the Habib family. And I am just stunned by the excitement and inspiration of seeing such a young institution doing so well. And, it's just, I cannot tell you just what a joy it has been to have a chance to get to know the people here. And the one thing I will say about Harvey College, which is also an amazing place, is it's all about the people. I will say I love the architecture on this campus. I actually hate most of the architecture on the mud campus, but we do have one building that we opened in 2014, and it has a lot of similarities. It's the Shanahan Teaching and Learning Center, has a lot of similarities to this campus, and it made our entire campus such a better place. Well, you guys are starting with a fabulous campus, all very nice. Okay, so I'm going to talk about understanding the impact of your work on society, the importance of a broad education. Now, I will say I sent Wasif titles of 3 different talks, and he picked the one that I had the least ideas about giving. Okay, that serves me right. So what I'm going to talk about is, first of all, why it's actually important. Then I'm going to tell you the Harvey College story. I'll tell you a little bit about my story. And then I'll close with really just some very short remarks about what this might mean for the graduates from Habib University. And I won't say much about that because Bakar is going to interview me on that afterwards. Okay, so one thing I will tell you is that in my entire life, I have been a painter, a watercolor artist. And so one of the things I decided to do was just put a few paintings in these slides. This particular painting is called Sasha's World. Sasha is my daughter. She's my second child. My first son is a math computer science geek. Sasha does peace negotiations for the United Nations in the Central African Republic. And a few years ago, she said, "Mom, my friend Colleen just bought this antique map of the world, and it costs $200, and I don't have $200. So would you paint me a map of the world?" I'm going like, that is the stupidest idea I've ever heard. It's going to take me forever to do that. She goes, "Mom, don't you love me?" Well, there it is. Okay, so why understanding the impact of your work on society matters? Well, the first thing is, when you think about what you're trying to do in the world, and if you're using that as one of the ways to make choices about your career, you actually make better choices. The second one is, this world is full of problems. It was even full of problems before Donald Trump got elected. And if we really want to be able to address those problems, we need to have all of our people, whether they're scientists or engineers or economists or politicians, thinking about the impact of their work on society. And then finally, if you're thinking about the impact of the world on society, maybe we'd avoid some of the disasters like climate change, wars, and nuclear weapons. So now let me start with Harvey College's story. Our founding president already told you. When Harvey College was started, the founding president, Joe Platt, was one of the very few physicists in the United States who refused to work on the Manhattan Project because he thought developing atomic weapons would be bad for the world. Well, I agree with him. They are bad for the world. They were very bad when they were set off in Japan during World War II, and it will be even worse if somebody actually attacks another company with them now, because the power of those weapons is exponentially worse than it was in World War II. So we are roughly the same size as Habib University. We were founded in 1955, and we were created to be a liberal arts college of science and engineering. Now, to some people, that's an oxymoron. How could you be a liberal arts college of science and engineering? Well, the thing we take seriously about being a liberal arts college is, first of all, we believe that all of our students need significant depth of understanding in humanities, social sciences, and the arts, as well as across all the areas of science and engineering. Secondly, we really believe in experiential hands-on learning and also in interdisciplinary learning. We care very deeply about educating undergraduate students, not just so that they learn knowledge, but so that they become prepared to be better human beings once they graduate. And I have to say, there's a huge resonance for me between what Harvey College has been doing for the last 60-some years and Habib University here in Karachi. As we've already said, it was motivated by the development of atomic weapons during World War II. And our goal, very explicitly, was to educate scientists, engineers, and mathematicians who'd be leaders in their field and understand the impact of their work on society. So the kinds of things that the founding faculty thought about back in 1955, 1956, 1957, we admitted our first class of students in 1957. So that means our first graduating class was 1961. So one of them was everybody should have a broad and highly rigorous education across science and engineering and math. So if you're going to be a physicist, you're going to know chemistry, biology, computer science, engineering, math, physics, as well as chemistry. Same for every other discipline. And the second one that I already told you about is a broad and also rigorous approach to humanities, social sciences, and the arts. Our students take roughly a third of their courses in humanities, social sciences, and the arts. So that's how serious we are about this. It is, in the United States, by far the largest percentage of learning for a science and engineering institution that is devoted to social sciences, humanities, and the arts. As I mentioned, we really believe that if you're going to learn, it's important to learn by actually doing things, building things, exploring things, and also being able to understand how what you're learning can be seen from different perspectives, from different disciplines, and the cultures of different disciplines is incredibly important. Now, there are lots of places that talk about this stuff now, but 60 years ago, it was unheard of. We think that teamwork, collaboration is incredibly important. We also think that being able to explain ideas, whether it's giving a talk about them or writing a paper about them, is incredibly important. And we also think that creativity, the possibility of generating new ideas, beautiful and ugly, is really important. Our students do not compete with each other. Our rule is that it is every student's responsibility to help every other student succeed, and we take that really seriously. So if I'm a student and I walk up to anyone on the campus and I say, I need help with my biology homework, the person I walk up to will either say, what do you need help with right now? Or they'll say, I'm really busy right this second, I'm running to a class, can we meet later today? Or they'll say, I suck at biology, but if you ask so-and-so, who's my roommate, she'll help you, she's really good at it. And we are, in my experience, before I got to Habib University, an incredibly tight-knit learning community with all of our students living on campus. Now, Habib University students are a tight-knit learning community, and what they need most, and you know who I'm talking to here, is dorms that are close. And the reason I know that they need this is in the last couple of days, I've had several conversations with students, and I ask them, okay, what do you really like about Habib University? What's your favorite thing? They say something like, we're a community of learners, we learn from each other, everybody's helpful, the faculty are amazing, they love to engage with us, and so on and so on. And then I say, what single thing needs to be fixed? And one of them is, it's too far away from where I live. And the other one is, we need more majors. Well, I actually think the bit about it being too far away from where I live, we have students here at Habib University who spend 4 hours a day, 2 hours coming, 2 hours going back. So, yes, they need dorms. So other things that were important in the design of Harvey Mudd College were undergraduate only. Okay, why does that matter? It matters because it means that the focus of everything we do is on our undergraduate students. It means that the people who are teaching those students are our faculty, not graduate students. It means that when an undergraduate student has the opportunity to do research with a faculty member, they're not washing dishes. They're actually coming up with hypotheses, they're structuring experiments, they're conducting experiments, they're writing the papers. They are, yes, somewhat junior collaborators, but they're collaborators. If you are working in a lab that has a half dozen graduate students, PhD students, and 2 postdocs, believe me, you are washing bottles. We're co-ed, and this is one of the funny things about our founding president. So our trustees thought that since this was going to be a science and engineering school, it should be for men only. And Joe Platt wanted there to be female students as well. And one of his trustees said, "But Joe, nobody would ever want to marry a female mathematician." Okay, I take this seriously. Fortunately, I married another mathematician who wanted to marry a female mathematician. Joe said, "I did." And it's true. His wife, Jean, was a mathematician. And that seemed to convince them that it could be co-ed. Now, mind you, they put a limit on the percentage of students who could be female. 11%. They didn't lift it till 1971. We're small. And, until I went to Harvey Mudd College, I'd been at IBM Research, I'd been at the University of Toronto, the University of British Columbia, all large research institutions. I was at Princeton, medium-sized research university. This place is tiny. Why does that matter? Well, personally, I know more than half of my students. I can actually mentor them. I can help them get internship or job opportunities. And for me as president, the reason I want to be at an academic institution is so that I can interact with the students and faculty. And there are so few places where that's possible. But what it really means is it's an intimate community where people care about each other as human beings, where their empathy and excellent passion, beauty, respect, and service are part of our daily life. We have a 9-to-1 student-to-faculty ratio. Our faculty are more valued for their innovation, for their teaching, and also their innovation in pedagogy and curriculum than for research, but it's still important that they do high-quality research because we think it really matters that students, as undergraduates, get a chance to do high-quality research, and they do that with our faculty. So every place I've been in my life, we have technically had shared governance with our faculty and students. At Harvey Mudd, we really have shared governance with our faculty, students, alumni, trustees. And, occasionally it's irritating. You want to get something done, and you have to consult everybody. But the benefit is that people own what happens at Harvey Mudd. They care about it. And I will say, of all the places I've been in my life, Harvey Mudd, well, now I'm at Habib University, but until I was at Habib University, the only place I'd ever been where faculty cared more about the mission of the college and the education of students was Harvey Mudd. I see that at Habib University too. And then the last thing that makes a lot of what we do possible in a way that frankly couldn't have been possible, because I just want to say Harvey Mudd's family was not nearly as rich or as generous as the Habib family. And so, when I look at how much the Habib family and other philanthropic people in Pakistan have invested in this university in its first, well, it's a little bit more than, they had to build the campus before they could have students and stuff like that. So it's about 8 years. It's phenomenal. The reason we were able to do and build and develop is because we are one of the Claremont Colleges. So Claremont is a small town, maybe 50,000 people, that is part of the greater Los Angeles sprawl, which is about 20 million people. We're right on the edge, so we're right next to a wilderness with a 10,000-foot mountain, which is very nice. There are 7 academic institutions that are side by side in Claremont, and they make up the Claremont Colleges. Of those, 5 are undergraduate colleges. And so in our early days, when we were just building our faculty, many of the humanities and social science art classes that our students took were taught by the other Claremont colleges. And we benefited by being able to share a library, student health services, all kinds of IT services now today. It's really quite a remarkable thing. So, Harvey Mudd College 20 years ago. We used to be known as the hidden jewel. Nobody knew about us. Our students were mostly white or Asian and male, and our faculty was mostly white and male. Okay? Today, when I started as president of Harvey Mudd, I said, anyone who's ever heard of MIT, Caltech, and Stanford should know about Harvey Mudd, because we are as important in our niche as they are, because we are the innovators for undergraduate education. Well, now actually, people know about us. It's amazing. Our student body is now half female and racially diverse. So we are about 40% white at this point. So what is the other 60%? So there's 10% international. We do occasionally have a student from Canada or from Europe, but mostly they're from India or Pakistan, Bangladesh, China, Singapore, Malaysia, etc. So the remaining 50% is 10% Black, 20% Hispanic, about 20% Asian. Well, actually, I misdid that somehow, because I guess I counted as some of our Black and some of our Hispanic and some of our Asians. We have a number of multiracial students who are in those categories. But we are one of the most racially diverse institutions in the country, and that's extraordinary for an elite science and engineering school. Our faculty is 40% female. So let me just say, while I've been president at Harvey Mudd, Caltech faculty made it into the double digits female. MIT is about 15% female. Stanford Engineering is about 17% female. Our racial diversity is also slowly increasing, but it is increasing. And we're rated #1 by US News and World Report for undergraduate engineering. We're rated anywhere from, among all universities in the country, anywhere from, 25 to number 18. That's pretty amazing for a tiny college. And we are always among the top 3 for early and mid-career salaries, as according to pay scale. And when I talk, we are the most desired college to hire from, or university to hire from, for Google, Facebook, and Microsoft, and Intel. And when I ask them why they want to hire our graduates, #1, our students love to learn. #2, they have outstanding communication and people skills. Sorry, that's communication, teamwork, and people skills, it's supposed to be. And they also have a really good base of academic knowledge. But the first two are more important to employers than the last one. Okay, so that was the story of Harvey College. Now let me tell you about my story. Okay, so this particular painting, it's a self-portrait. It's called Reassembly Required. And I painted it my third semester at Harvey College when I was going through a very difficult time of adjusting to the culture of Harvey Mudd, particularly among the faculty. And my son looks at this painting and he says, you know, Mom, it's actually way more positive if you read it from the right back to the left, because it sounds like you're a mess and then you end up being successful. Well, the painting I was doing was actually reflecting going that way, but it hangs at the entrance to the president's house opposite a mirror, so you can read it either way. Okay, so reassembly required. So, obviously, when I did this painting, I believe I was 56 years old, I think that's right. But what has happened throughout my life is over and over again, I have made a decision that had to do with thinking about the impact of my work on society. And even though the decision seemed like a good thing at the time I made it, and in fact, in retrospect, was a great decision, as I moved into the new environment that came about from this, it was really hard. And I had to basically take the skills and the approaches I had to whatever I was doing and mix them all up, learn some new ones, and put them back together in order to succeed. And it is my claim that that's what a broad education does to you. And it's what I know in talking to the students at Habib University. One of the things they say about what is important to them being here is that it has challenged the way they think about the world. And it has made them realize that they need to incorporate a whole variety of perspectives. And that's really what that painting is about. So I'm just going to give you a few episodes from my life when this happened. Okay, number one, you're probably wondering what I was doing in 1971 traveling across Pakistan. I had dropped out of university. And the reason I had dropped out of university is I really wanted to do something that mattered in the world. And I was studying pure mathematics. Now, I dropped out of university actually on Christmas Day of 1970. And the reason was I couldn't understand how I could use pure mathematics to have a positive impact on the world. For me, pure mathematics was something incredibly beautiful, but also incredibly disconnected with what was going on in the world. And so I decided that I was going to take a break, and I ended up spending most of that time traveling overland. Well, we had to fly across the Atlantic Ocean, but traveling overland from Scotland to India and then back again. And I will say there was a number of things that came out of that. First of all, I loved, particularly the time in Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India. I just loved being in those countries. And I will say I was very skinny, the thinnest I've ever been in my life, because we were literally, the person and I who were traveling together, we were living on about $1 a day, and that included travel. And so we were eating maybe a banana a day. But the thing I discovered was I didn't want to live my life without math. I found that I was reading recreational math books and playing chess. I don't even like chess, but I was missing mathematics so badly that I decided that I would go back and do my PhD, even though I couldn't figure out how I was going to use it to change the world. And it was a really good decision. Okay, I was the first one. But when I got back, I had been gone for 21 months. And I had, say, I had participated in ingesting a number of substances that are now legal in California and Washington and a few other states. And very much available in Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India at the time. And I had forgotten every single thing I knew. So here I am. I told the university I wanted to come back and go directly into my PhD program. I'd only finished the first 2 years as an undergraduate. So they said, fine, you actually have to graduate before you can be in the PhD program, but we'll let you finish your degree by taking all the graduate courses equivalents instead of the undergraduate courses. So here I am in graduate topology, ring theory, real analysis, and I can't remember a single definition. Okay, that's what I looked like. It was one of the best things that ever happened to me. Because before I had dropped out, learning mathematics was like drinking milkshakes. Delicious, really smooth, no effort at all. I came back from India and Pakistan and Afghanistan and all the other places. I had to work like crazy. Okay, so what happens when you have to work for something? You value it. And that was when I made the transition to starting to work really hard, and it's when I started to really value what I was learning. Okay, sorry. Next one, I graduate with my PhD. In my PhD, I solve 3 20-year-old problems and shut down a field. Wow, that's great. I applied for every job in North America that somebody with a PhD in pure mathematics could apply for. There were 83. There were 1,000 people applying for them. Most of those jobs were temporary positions. I got a tenure-track position. Yes! I took it. It was at a place called Oakland University that is 25 miles north of Detroit. I hated it. I was single. There was no social life at all. Okay, I know dating is not a thing in Pakistan. I had 1 date in 8 months. And it was with somebody I didn't even like, but I was just desperate. So I went to a conference every month, a math conference, of course. And at one of those, I found out that even though there were way too many PhDs in mathematics for the job opportunities, people with a PhD in computer science who did the same kind of research that I did, they could get a job at Harvard or MIT and I'm going like, those must be really talented people. And the person I'm talking to, who's a professor of computer science from Stanford, but who's a mathematician whose work I knew, he goes, no, they're not particularly good. I'm going like, that's ridiculous. How could it be I solved 3 20-year-old problems and I'm at Oakland University? And they are not particularly good, and they're getting job offers from MIT. And he goes, well, let me tell you about this guy, Andy Yao. Andy Yao did his PhD in theoretical physics at Harvard. He did his postdoc at Stanford. He worked with Nobel laureates. And he realized when he finished that his possibility of getting academic position was very low. So what did he do? He went to University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, did his PhD in theoretical computer science in 2 years. He went on to careers at Stanford, Princeton. He won the Turing Award in 2004. I went, well, this is back in, just the conversation is in 1977. Well, actually spring of 78 at this point. I go, I could do that. So 1 year after I finished my PhD, I started a PhD in theoretical computer science at the University of Toronto. Now, most of you know that University of Toronto is a really good university, but in fact it was then and is now one of the top 10 computer science departments in North America. And I thought, well, I'll do like Andy Yao. I'll take 10 graduate courses in my first year, and then I'll write my thesis in my second year, and I'll be done. Well, the market was so desperate for computer science PhDs, well, people who could teach computer science and do research. The University of Toronto hired me as a faculty member 9 months after I started my courses. Okay, but I got to tell you, that's what I felt like. Because the culture in computer science is so different from the culture in mathematics. Mathematics, we really value proofs. In computer science, even theoretical computers, it's more like they value intuition. Okay, well, by the time I had finished, was in my second year there, that's what I looked like. I was sort of coming back together, but it was hard. The next thing I did in the story is, Toronto was very proud of me, and they wanted me to meet a bunch of famous computer scientists, so they put me in charge of a seminar series. The first person who came was John Backus, who invented Fortran and Algol 68, one of the great programming languages people in the world. The second person was a young rising star in theoretical computer science called Nick Pippinger. And I already told one person the story of our meeting today, so I won't go into that. But the bottom line is we were engaged 6 weeks later. He's one of the shyest people I've met in my life. It's a long story. We've been married for 38 years now. And he was working at IBM Research. And so I ended up going to IBM Research because I thought he was too shy to make a move to a university. Because when you are a professor in a university, you actually have to talk to people. So I moved to IBM Research, all over again. Completely different culture. I mean, one of the best things I did in my life, completely by luck, because I met Nick, was to move to IBM. Because IBM had wonderful professional development and management training. And you guys probably don't realize this, but it doesn't exist in academia. You get made a dean, a provost, a department chair, whatever, a president, and you don't get any management training. So I really lucked out. I became a manager. I became a senior manager. And then as our children were getting to that stage where they're going to start school, and my parents were getting older, my parents were living, so I'm Canadian A, born in Canada, educated in Canada. We decided to move to the University of British Columbia in Vancouver. University of British Columbia at this point in time, so IBM Research in California, one of the top 3 places in the world for theoretical computer science. University of British Columbia, maybe 100th, 150th in North America. But the province wanted to build a great computer science department. And Nick and I looked at each other and sort of said, well, we think we care about making a difference in the world. Nobody like us is ever going to take a salary cut of 50% to go and do that. So we went. A lot like people starting Habib University. And it was, again, one of the best choices, but oh my God, it was so hard. But it was great for our children. They went to public schools in Canada. They went to French immersion. I think, again, one of the best choices we've ever made. It was really difficult. After being in Canada for 14 years, one of the things I started to realize was, so my passion is to change the culture of science and engineering so everybody feels welcome and supported. That religion or gender or race, country of origin, those things are irrelevant. They don't matter. But the way most places function, if you're female or black or gay or Muslim, you're not going to feel like you belong. So, one of the things I realized was that we were making a lot of progress at UBC. But when I would come to the US and give a talk about it, people would go, well, of course you can do that in Canada. It's a kindler, gentler country. Of course it's easy to hire women and promote them. And I'm going like, no. Yes, it is a kindler, gentler country. That is true. And it has much better immigration policies. It's much less racist. But it's still hard to make those things work. And so I eventually came to the conclusion that I had to move back to the US because I needed to be in a place where the culture of science and engineering is set. So I went to be Dean of Engineering at Princeton University. And it felt just like that. It was awful. I had to stop myself from saying, this is the stupidest place I've ever been in my life. It's also the richest place by far. But, I gradually sort of got it back together. We did a strategic planning exercise for the engineering school that turned out to be enormously successful. And I was contacted by Harvey Mudd about being a candidate for the president. I knew my next job, I was going to be president somewhere. But I thought, big research university, that's what I'd done for my career. But then I visited Harvey Mudd, sort of like visiting Habib University. The people were amazing. And I became convinced that that was a place where the faculty cared so much about teaching and educating students that they might be the people who could figure out how to make that education supportive for women and people of color and people of any religion. So I went. And it was just like this. Okay, everywhere I'd been, presidents are supposed to have ideas about teaching and research of presidents of academic institutions. Not at Harvey Mudd. The job of a president is to go raise money. So if I come around with a hat, you'll understand. And I walked right into it, and it felt like walking into a buzzsaw. And so the way this painting got painted is, beginning month into my third semester as president, I decided that I was going to have to work with an executive coach to fundamentally change how we interacted with faculty. It wasn't that all the faculty hated me, only probably a third. But, you cannot be the leader of an institution when a third of your faculty love you and a third hate you. That is just a terrible situation to be in. So I started working with an executive coach. Her name is Sabina Nawaz. Guess what country she's from? And I hadn't even thought of that until the second. And Sabina said, Maria, this is going to be a very painful process. It was. Because you're going to have to think about lots of things you've done in a certain way for your entire life and change them. And she said, you're going to feel a lot of anger and frustration. So I want you to do a painting where you take out all that anger and frustration. Whenever you're feeling like you just can't do it, I want you to work on the painting. That is the painting. Okay. I also had to do a painting for Sabina as well, it was just one of those things. I do this painting, which she loves, and she goes, I want you to do a painting of how you see me. Okay, well, she's had two young sons, so I had to do, the sons and Sabina, and I had to make it look like Sabina. She's gorgeous. Anyway. So my story is, and it's why abroad education is important, that if you're really serious about understanding the impact of your work on society, and if you make choices about what you do with your life based on that, you're going to over and over again be remaking yourself. You'll be reassembling who you are. But of course, that's what actually makes life so interesting. And it means here I am, 66 years old, and I'm still learning something every single day, including the last 2 days at Habib University. So, what about Habib University? What about the students? Do we actually have any students here? Raise your hand. Yeah, we have a whole bunch of them, all at the back. Well, not all of them. Okay, so the first thing is you're going to have way better careers than if you'd gone to someplace other than Habib University. You're going to be better problem solvers. And believe me, whether it's businesses or schools or politics, being a problem solver is something people want. You're going to be better at learning new things because in your undergraduate education, you had to learn many different kinds of disciplines. and you're going to be better at bridging disciplines. And you're going to have more impact on society. You're going to be better problem solvers, bringing diverse perspectives. That's going to make you have more impact on whatever you do in your life. You're going to be better at learning new things, or you're going to be better at bridging disciplines. So let me close this part of what we're going to do. The next thing is we're going to have a discussion. Habib University, and for those of you who've now heard me say this, this is the third or fourth time I'm saying it. I'm still going to say it because there are lots of people who haven't heard me say it. Habib University is a beautiful idea. It's an idea that really matters to this country and to the world. It has the potential to transform not just Pakistan, not just the economy, not just human development for this country, but by showing that it can be done in a country that has not ever had an institution like Habib University. It's never had a liberal arts university. It's never had something that is really an institution that is really trying to bring together men and women, people from conservative religious families with much more liberal ones, people from different religions, people with different political beliefs. It's never had that. And it's going to show that when you have something like this, it has a huge impact, even though it's a tiny institution. And when Pakistan shows that that can be done, there will be many other countries around the world that can be inspired to make it happen. Now, just one point I want to make that many other countries don't have is Pakistan is a very philanthropic country. That really matters. The generosity of the Habib family. Raise your hand if you're a member of the Habib family. Pakistan has a huge advantage because it has people who have financial capacity, who are willing to invest those resources in making the world a better place. And what has happened in Habib University over the last 8 years, 4 years with actual students, is just amazing. And I have absolutely no doubt that it's going to go from here and become even more impressive in the next 8 years. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria, for sharing your story. That was indeed took me by surprise, some of those things. So before we take questions from the audience, I'm sure there are many points that you touched upon that the audience would like to follow up on and discuss with you. I'm going to monopolize your time for just a bit. So I wanted to ask you, you closed off also with the thought on how liberal education is good for jobs and is good for making an impact on society. But these days, when you look at all the trends, you hear of machine learning, big data, Internet of Things. It all sounds like hyper specialization. So how really do you see a broad education making a dent in that?
So the first thing is, every person in this room, even those of you who are older than I am, you're going to need to learn about, not necessarily to learn the specialized knowledge, but you're going to have to understand the Internet of Things, machine learning, and how that's going to affect our world. And we are going to have to become much better at teaching that to people who are not specialists in computer science or math. So we are undergoing a phase shift in society. It's going to hit Pakistan maybe a little bit after it hits the United States, but it's coming here. And so one of the things that places like Habib University and Harvey College and other places that really care about teaching people, we're going to have to figure out how to make that knowledge accessible to everybody, absolutely everybody. So it's not going to be I mean, yes, there will be people doing highly specialized things using, developing the next approach to deep learning and, how to make the computer, beat you at Go. Google already did that, AlphaGo. But, all of these kinds of very narrow, very focused kinds of things. But for us to get through this phase shift in a way that people still have jobs, still can make a living, still can, marry, have children, prosper, all of those kinds of things. We're going to have to figure out how to do that. And the people who can do that are going to be the institutions that really care about innovation in curriculum pedagogy, like Habib University.
Thank you. I have one more question. So you touched upon, and then I also mentioned when introducing you, about your efforts towards increasing the participation of not just women, but also other minorities in science and engineering. Because, of course, eventually as we go forward, everyone has to play a role. It doesn't really make sense to leave out entire segments of society. That's something that we also value here at Habib University. So you, with the current numbers, you mentioned Harvey College has 40% female faculty, around 50% female students. So you have a momentum going. What advice would you have on institutions that are still trying to build up that momentum?
Yeah, so Habib University is already ahead of, I think, probably many universities in Pakistan in that you're already 54% female, 46% male. But the majority of the female students are in the two majors that are not science and engineering, social development policy and communication design. But even in computer science and engineering, which are areas, electrical engineering, where women are really underrepresented in the US. So electrical engineering is typically about 13% female as an undergraduate major in the US. I believe it's over 25% female here. Okay, so it's already a great start. And computer science is typically between 11 and 15% female in the US, and here I believe it's over 20%. So you're already ahead of the game. But the additional things you're going to have to do is, Habib University is already doing outreach to high schools and teachers, but you're going to need to do more. Habib University already has a women in computer science and engineering club, but you're going to need to do more. Habib University is already working on making their curriculum so that it is supportive for everyone, women as well as men. You're going to need to do more. And then I think one of the things that has been particularly successful is when you really blend areas from social sciences and humanities with computer science and engineering. And so there's already some courses that Habib University is doing that, but you're going to need to do more. So in other words, do what you're doing and do more. And for those of you, they need to hire more faculty. One of the things that they need in terms of being able to recruit faculty is they're going to need to build faculty residences on this campus. Because particularly, I think one of the ways in terms of bringing, more wonderful, talented, committed faculty here to Karachi is you have to give them a place that's safe to live, where, whether it's, a faculty member and their spouse or faculty members and young children and those kinds of things. So I'm just telling you things that, philanthropists, these are all things that are going to need to be funded here. But I have no doubt that Habib University will succeed.
Thank you. That phrase, do more, has an interesting history in Pakistan. Maybe I'll tell you about it later. Okay, so I guess with that, we can take questions from the audience. There are ushers with mics. If you just raise your hand and some of the ushers will come to you with the mic. There's a gentleman right there in the middle.
My observation about Habib University, that it has two competitive advantages. Number one, it is a fast-growing institution of Pakistan. And number two, its reputation due to its management, faculty, and students. My question is, what exactly will take Habib University at top among the other competitive universities of Pakistan? Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I think Habib University has a number of advantages already that they are going to use to leverage it. Number one, it has partnerships with some of the top universities in the US. So Stanford, UC Berkeley, Carnegie Mellon, Texas A&M, Harvey Mudd College, Pitzer College. These are really amazing institutions, and I don't know of a single other university in Pakistan that has those kinds of partnerships. And you know, the kinds of advantages you get from that kind of partnership is, first of all, the Habib University students have chances to go do summer research experiences. I know we have roughly 20 students going to Stanford each year to do that. We have students going to other universities as well. But you also have the opportunity to have faculty from those institutions come and visit here. And, you know, I have to say, just for me, so I have known about Habib University for 2 years. But it is so different being here in person, to actually experience what it's like. And so I've never been invited to another university in Pakistan. I'm pretty sure most of our faculty at Harvey Mudd have never been invited. So I think one of the things that is going to cause Habib University to rise incredibly rapidly is because they have, and this is a lot of it is due to the leadership of the founding president, Wasif. A lot of it is due to the vision of the Habib family, and a lot of it is due to the board. I mean, there are people on this board from the United States who have been on this board since it was just a tiny, tiny glimmer in somebody's eyes, their eyes and Wasif's eyes and Rafiq's eyes. So, you know, the difference, I think, in the vision for this is to say, let's think about what is possible to do in taking the best that has been done in the United States and not replicating it, but adjusting it so it is right for Pakistan. That's what Habib University is doing. And that, together with its international partnerships, is what I think is going to push it ahead of everybody else.
In this world of huge companies and data and computer science, at Davos, George Soros made a statement that these companies are too big and too dangerous and they should be broken up. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, good luck, George. I mean, there are a number of people who are very worried, particularly about companies like Google and Facebook, that have so much control over information and how that information is spreading around the world. And I genuinely think that the leaders, so Mark Zuckerberg and Sundar Pichai and so on, are really worried about that because they're worried that there will start to be restrictions put on those companies by, you know, the EU, by the US, by, you know, there's already restrictions put on them by China. I mean, obviously, you know, they have, basically Google has chosen not to participate in China, which is, of course, allowed Baidu to really become much more powerful there, and that's because of the censorship restrictions in China. On the other hand, so I do think there's going to be this conflict between these companies are very large. A large part of their success is because they are such a dominant platform. And, you know, Microsoft is a great example of a company that was incredibly dominant for, you know, 20 years because Windows was the dominant software platform. And, you know, they missed, I mean, this is so ridiculous. They were the first company to develop a smartphone, but they got the UI, user interface, wrong. So their phones went nowhere, and they got eclipsed by Apple. They were the first company to develop a tablet. They got the UI wrong. And they got surpassed by Apple. They were not the first company to do search, but they had a possibility to buy Google for a small amount of money early on, and they passed it up. Okay. So, it's very interesting watching how companies can be incredibly dominant and then fade. Think about Xerox. I know somebody over there who very fortunately sold his injection molding business. That's the person who asked the question, who's member of the Habib family and on the board. Ali sold his business that was based, a very successful business in Canada, based on making print cartridges for Xerox, just before Xerox crashed. That was very smart. Kodak, the dominant film and camera company for decades, gone. So, it's very hard to predict whether Google and Facebook will continue to be as dominant as they are. I mean, look at Intel. So, still riding really high, okay? Spectre and Meltdown. How did those security gaps get into the chip design, also AMD? Look at General Electric. I mean, GE was for, decades revered as the best managed company. Okay, it's doing very poorly right now. Its stock has just crashed. So I think one of the things that happens in the world is we see dominant companies rise. Occasionally they manage to stay up there for, a century. But often, they will be there for like 20 years and then come down. I think it's unlikely, I think it's likely that certain legislative organizations, like for instance the EU gave Google a massive fine for being non-competitive in terms of how it treated, or anti-competitive in how it treated advertising on their search platform. So, and I think that has caused Google to back off in some of those practices. So I think there are going to be things that happen that have, the shape and put more controls in place, but actually breaking them up, I would be very surprised.
I'm Dr. Severin Minot. I'm also Canadian, teaching here at Habib University. Welcome. I have a question. We are now about to graduate our first batch, and I'm looking at the future of Habib University and the potential it has in establishing a graduate school. Could you speak to the stakes at hand in this transition, eventual transition that I'd love to see here at Habib, to provide a graduate school in various disciplines and interdisciplinary fields? Thank you.
So that's a great question. Harvey Mudd has thought about having a graduate program. It did, in fact, have a master's program in engineering for about 20 years. And it was, as our general engineering program is at the undergraduate level, it's highly interdisciplinary. What we eventually realized was, one, it was distracting attention from undergraduate attention. Two, the students who were staying to do the master's, we never admitted outside students, were actually not the strongest of our students, and that we were even doing them a disservice because it wasn't as strong a graduate program as they would get if they went to Stanford or Caltech or whatever. So if it were my advice, I'd say, don't do it. Let somebody else, Wasif is happy, but let somebody else create an interdisciplinary graduate school that, can actually, here in Karachi, for example. But I think there's such a huge difference between the education that an undergraduate gets at an undergraduate-only institution and what you get when you're at a place that has PhD and master's students. So personally, I wouldn't do it. We're not going to do it at Harvey Mudd. And, when I first came to Harvey Mudd, I thought that was a great idea. But after you're there for a while and you take a look at, your competitors. So, for example, Princeton is an example of a reasonably good university that puts a lot of emphasis on undergraduate education. And they they treat their graduate students horribly in comparison. My son was a graduate student there, but also I had graduate students there, so I got to see their experience. But even though they're putting in a priority on the undergraduate students, their experience is nothing like what it's like at a place like Harvey Mudd. So I would by all means encourage somebody to start, because I'm sure Pakistan could use a great graduate institution that's interdisciplinary and that really cares about impact of your work on society and all those kinds of things. But just do it separately.
My question is, Dr. Clave, what you said about leaving the undergraduate degree and going on like for 20 months, exploring India, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. My question is, as a senior students, we graduate in 2 months. And the kind of education experience that Habib has offered, it has been transdisciplinary, in which I personally have involved myself in so many meta-curricular activities. There's so much I've done. So right now, at this point of time, 2 months before the graduation, there are uncertainties and anxieties about what to pick for the future, going into the master's degree. So my question is, what were you thinking, while you were in the undergraduate level about the aspirations of what you really wanted? Because eventually you have to trickle and, converge all of those experiences into something that you really want to do. So can you talk about the process and the journey of 20 months of how you explored and how you really wanted to do what you did eventually? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's very, very common. I know from our seniors at Harvey Mudd, talking to them about choosing what they're going to do next. And, they're trying to decide, are they going to graduate school? Are they going to go join the Peace Corps or Teach for America? Are they going to go and work for a law firm and be because there's a lot of opportunities in patent law right now, and so few lawyers have a clue about technology and engineering because our students have strong humanities background and writing skills and so on, it makes them very attractive. So do I want to go do that? Or am I going to go to Stanford or Caltech or MIT and get a PhD? And, I think one of the things that has actually been helpful for me is to realize that none of these decisions actually matter. So it turned out, you can imagine how upset my parents were when I dropped out of university. Right? I was their golden child. I was going to be incredibly successful. I was going to be a wonderful scientist. I was going to change the world. And I dropped out. And plus, I was using drugs. Let's not forget that. And plus, I was espousing radical politics. They thought their dream child was just lost to society. And it turns out that it really didn't matter. In fact, it did matter in a positive way that I did that. The fact that I took, 20 months to travel around the world, I had no clue what I was going to do most of that time. I was just trying to understand different cultures, trying to appreciate the fact that I was learning so much. But finally, I was sitting on a beach in Goa, and I wrote a letter to the math department at the University of Alberta, which is where I had been an undergraduate. And let's just say that I was on the student council when I left, and there was an article that was published about how useless pure mathematics was, an interview with me. So the math department didn't have reasons to be really fond of me after I had left. And so when I wrote this letter, I said, okay, I now realize I'm going to be a mathematician. I can't live without it. I'm coming back. Please let me into the PhD program now. Okay, they could have written a really nasty letter back. They could have said, Maria, you just told us that pure mathematics, just 18 months ago, you told us pure mathematics is not important, that we didn't teach you well, we didn't prepare you to make a difference in the world. And now you want to come and do a PhD, and you want to do it without finishing an undergraduate degree? They could have said, Maria, go away. Instead, they said, a very polite letter from the dean, his letter said, Dear Maria, you have to complete a 4-year degree before you can be admitted to a PhD program. You have only completed 2 years. But we will offer you a special opportunity in which we will allow you to complete your degree in 3 years, so long as you get basically straight A's, and will allow you to complete it by taking the graduate courses instead of the undergraduate courses. We welcome you back to the University of Alberta. That was so generous. And so they were showing respect, beauty, passion. They were being generous. They were showing empathy to me as a young person who had been obnoxious. Okay, probably young people in Pakistan are not obnoxious, but I will tell you in Canada and the US, young people are quite often obnoxious. And I am so grateful that they gave me that opportunity, because if I had just had to go back and do the undergraduate courses, I still probably would have been bored. But because they put me in the graduate courses without any of the prerequisites, it was really hard. So that taught me to work, and it taught me to value work. So, you know, the entire time I was a PhD student, I knew the job market was awful. I just ignored it. I just went, I'll be different. I'm special. And then the job market was awful, but it wasn't until I was actually in that horrible job that I realized that I wasn't that special. But that didn't stop me from being able to say, oh, well, okay, I probably should have done computer science. I can still do computer science. And that's sort of the story over and over again. So when you're trying to decide which of the many things you might do, should I take a job? Should I apply to grad school? Should I do an internship? What I usually say is, first of all, try to pick any of the above that you're going to learn in. And try to make sure that whatever you pick, it doesn't close other doors. Now, you know, I really thought when I dropped out, I'd probably close the door to going to getting a PhD in math. Turned out the math department was very nice at the University of Alberta. I thought that when I moved to computer science, I was saying goodbye to mathematics. But as my introduction said, I have been on the board of the Mathematical Sciences Research Institute at Berkeley for at least 10 years at this point, and I'm leading their strategic planning. That's the top mathematical research institute in the world. So the fact that I actually learned some computer science helped, not hindered my ability to do that. So just be confident that whatever you pick, it's going to be fine. You've had a great undergraduate education. You've learned so many different things. You've been involved in just a multitude of different learning experiences while you're here. Whatever you choose, it's going to work out.
Over here, during your lecture, we've spoken about impact a couple of times, and being part of the generation that is on the path to making impact in the world, my question to you would be, what are some of the fields we should focus on?
So, ask that again.
What are, in your opinion, what are some of the fields that my generation should focus in terms of making impacts?
Yes, that one I know the answer to. Thank you. So, I would give you 2 pieces of advice. 1, learn some computer science and learn some math, because those are, or some statistics, but those are going to be the key to AI, machine learning, all of those kinds of things. And learn a bunch of other stuff in other disciplines. Because the people that are going to have the biggest opportunities are the people who have enough depth in computer science, statistics, and math to really understand the technologies of AI and machine learning, data science, and they know enough in social sciences, humanities, arts, other areas of science that they can bridge. And I absolutely guarantee that if that's what you choose to do, you're going to be You're going to be like me after I learned computer science. I was so lucky that I picked an area where there were never enough people of my age. So when I was 28, there weren't enough people. When I was 35, there weren't enough people. Now that I'm 66, there aren't enough people. So I promise that if you do that, you are going to have a fantastic career.
Okay, so we'll close our question and answer session now. Before we break, I'll request the Chancellor of Habib University, Mr. Rafiq Habib, to please come on stage and share a few thoughts. Let's give him a big hand.
There's nothing left for me to say except thank you all for being here and to thank Maria Claremont for a very, very enlightening talk. And it's created a lot of food for thought for the young people and given hope for people my age to still continue to learn. So God bless. Thank you very much.
Here's a small memento.
Can I look? All right, that is gorgeous. That is totally beautiful. Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Oh, that is fantastic.
Thank you, everyone. You've been a great audience. Thank you for being with us today. I request you to now please follow the ushers outside who will take you to refreshments.